If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz, and I'm here today to review the 2013 second movie from the reboot series, Star Trek Into Darkness, starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, and Benedict Cumberbatch, directed by J.J. Abrams. The crew of the Starship Enterprise returns home after an act of terrorism within its organization destroys most of Starfleet and what it represents, leaving Earth in a state of crisis. With a personal score to settle, Captain James T. Kirk, played by Chris Pine, leads his crew on a mission to capture a one-man weapon of mass destruction named John Harrison, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, thereby propelling all of them into an epic game of life and death. From what I have seen on some reviews, and from what I remember when this film came out, is that people liked it, but specifically Star Trek fans had some issues with this movie, and I'm going to guess as to what it is, but before I get started with that, the first thing I want to say is that this film is just basically more of the cast and characters. That's more of a good thing. I think the main people that you're going to be dealing with in the film are going to be Kirk, Spock, and Uhura. And I think it's a good thing because I like the characters. They're very charming. And I think Quinto does a great job as Spock once again in this movie. One of the main themes of this film is Spock trying to show his more human side to his friends and how exasperated they are that he just stays in that logic lane throughout most of the movie. And that is what draws some of the drama between the characters in this film, including Bones and Kirk and Uhura. And I think that's what drives the interpersonal drama forward in this movie. The drama with Kirk trying to regain his position and what happens to Pike in the beginning of the movie, I think is also pretty decent. Like I said, I think the characters are the strongest thing about this timeline so far, and I think they are done incredibly well. Now, let's get into the story itself. And the story is more of a thriller-drama mix, which I think is pretty good, but I also think the drama isn't as good as the thriller parts. After the first act, this is pretty much a very serious, thriller, drama-minded movie. There really isn't a lot of comedy going on. There's a little bit of Simon Pegg as Scotty doing some funny things. But other than that, it remains pretty serious throughout this film. And honestly, it is entertaining. It is a good time to watch. But the drama is kind of lacking, especially when the main drama is about Kirk and his relationship with Pike. And that you don't get to see much of Pike and his relationship other than he brought him to Starfleet. And he is continuing to vouch for him when he messes up. And then there's kind of the drama with Kirk skirting regulations just to get back at John Harrison in this movie. So with that, the drama is decent. But the thriller parts of the film, I think, are the much better parts of the film, especially when it comes to the action. When it comes to the drama, it's okay, but it's not as good as the thriller parts. But it's still watchable. It's still enjoyable. Now, I will say that the film has a good villain, and that is Benedict Cumberbatch as John Harrison. Now, I'm going to spoil a big thing about this villain, and if you don't know about this by now, I'm sorry, but here we come. Benedict Cumberbatch plays a guy named John Harrison. Who he actually is Khan. That is right, the villain from the second movie. I forget his entire full name, but sorry. Now again, I like Cumberbatch as the villain. I think he actually plays this ruthless killing machine incredibly well. But as Khan, I don't know about that. Like, I think having him as Khan and having this character as Khan, I really don't think it's a good idea in this movie. But I get the differences they tried to make with this Khan to what Montalban's Khan was. But if I'm comparing the two, Montalban's is so much better. He's much more charming. He's much more of a leader. In this movie, Benedict Cumberbatch's version is just a ruthless killer. There is no charm. There's no charisma. He might as well have been Vulcan, with the lack of depth in his character other than I'm killing everybody and I am taking what's mine and I'm ruthless and intelligent. That is all this guy is, and that's kind of a disappointment. The other thing that I do not like about this movie is the callbacks to Wrath. They just feel incredibly unnecessary. I'm not going to spoil those callbacks, but once you see these callbacks, they're going to be very obvious, and I just look at it and go, why didn't you just do something different with this? Once you notice these callbacks, I think you're going to be like me and go, I don't know why they did this. Is it going to ruin the movie? I don't think it does. But it's definitely an eyesore that I just did not really like so much. But other than that, it's fine. I guess the best way to put it is anything that reminds me of Wrath of Khan is a bad thing in this movie, which unfortunately is the true identity of the villain and the callbacks to Wrath of Khan. But other than that, I think the film is enjoyable. I think it's actually very enjoyable. So overall, I am going to recommend Star Trek Into Darkness. I've seen some reviews on Letterboxd and IMDb that really show that people did not like this movie. And I kind of understand why, especially if you are a fan of Star Trek and you've been into Star Trek for so long. I can understand why people don't like the interpretation of Khan in this movie. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is actually decent as the villain. I think him being Khan is a bad idea. I would actually agree with that part. But really, the thing to watch with this movie are the characters and some of the action, which I think are very good. And I think that's really the plus of this film. So, overall, I will recommend Star Trek Into Darkness. Check it out on Paramount Plus or wherever you can watch this movie. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.